ChatGPT said, when someone stays on your mind constantly, it's not always because you want them there. It's because something inside you hasn't let go. You see, the mind has a peculiar way of holding on to what the heart refuses to release. We often think that our thoughts are logical, that they follow reason, that they are within our control. But the truth is, memory is deeply emotional. We remember feelings more vividly than facts. It's not the exact words someone said that echo in your mind at 2 a.m. It's how they made you feel. It's the comfort in their voice, the safety in their presence, or sometimes the wound they left behind. The heart, unlike the mind, it doesn't operate on logic. It doesn't respond to calendars or closure letters. It doesn't care how much time has passed or how many other people have come and gone. The heart remembers through emotion, through attachment, through longing. And the mind, being its partner in survival, stores those memories for safekeeping, not to hurt you, not to punish you, but because part of you still believes that person or that feeling mattered. When the heart doesn't get the chance to fully let go, whether because the story ended too soon or because the ending wasn't clear, the mind tries to resolve the unfinished business. That's why you find yourself replaying conversations, analyzing facial expressions, decoding texts, and reliving moments, not because you enjoy the pain of remembering, but because your inner self is trying to make sense of what happened. You're trying to create peace where there was confusion. You're trying to find meaning where there was silence. And that process doesn't obey your willpower. You can try to distract yourself. You can dive into new relationships, chase new goals, even pretend you've moved on. But the unresolved parts of your heart will still whisper through your thoughts. They'll come up in dreams, in the quiet, in the middle of laughter, in the faces of strangers. The mind has its own clock. It replays what the heart hasn't processed yet. Often, this shows up as obsession or emotional loops. You think of them constantly without wanting to. You dream about them, hear their name, feel their presence, even when you logically know it's over. That's because emotional attachments are stored deep in your brain, particularly in the limbic system, the emotional center, the hippocampus and amygdala. The parts responsible for memory and emotional response work together to make sure the things that impacted you most are never truly forgotten, especially if the feeling was intense. Even pain leaves fingerprints, especially pain, because the heart tries to protect itself from experiencing that same depth of hurt again. The mind replays the story, not to torment you, but to warn you. Remember this. Let's not do this again. But in doing so, it keeps that person, that situation, alive in your consciousness. You're not stuck because you're weak. You're stuck because your heart loved deeply. And love doesn't just evaporate because it's inconvenient. Sometimes we don't let go of people because we don't want to let go of who we were with them. Or we're still waiting for a different outcome, a better ending, a moment of justice or understanding that never came. We think that keeping them in our thoughts is a way to keep the story alive long enough to rewrite it. But healing doesn't happen by holding on. Healing begins when we stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what can I learn from this? That person stays on your mind because they left an emotional footprint. And the only way to clean that space isn't by erasing them, it's by feeling everything you avoided feeling, grieving what was, accepting what wasn't, and forgiving what will never be. Only then does the heart release what it's been gripping so tightly. And when the heart lets go, the mind will follow, not immediately, not without resistance. But eventually, silence will return. And when it does, you'll realize it's not that they're forgetting, it's that you've finally remembered who you are without them. The mind will stop holding on when the heart no longer needs the memory to feel whole. That's when you'll be free. When someone is constantly on your mind, it's often not because you want them to be there. It's because something within you is still unresolved. We like to think that time heals everything, that with enough distance, we move on. But what many don't understand is that healing has less to do with time and more to do with understanding. And when there's unfinished emotional business, when a connection ends without answers, without closure, or without truth, The mind can't help but circle back again and again, replaying moments in search of peace that was never found. The human brain craves completion. It hates loose ends. When we go through something emotionally charged, a breakup, a betrayal, an unexpected goodbye, the mind automatically begins trying to piece the story together. Why did it end that way? What did I do wrong? Did they care? Were they pretending? Could I have changed the outcome? These aren't just passing questions. They're obsessions, looping thoughts driven by the need to finish a narrative that was left incomplete. Your mind is seeking logic, but your emotions are tangled in ambiguity. This loop of mental repetition isn't weakness. It's your brain's survival mechanism at work. The unfinished business becomes like an open tab in your mental browser, constantly running in the background, draining your emotional energy, even when you're focused on something else. You may smile, work, socialize, and even laugh. But somewhere in the quiet, when the world slows down, the thoughts resurface, uninvited yet persistent, not because you missed a person, necessarily, but because the emotional file wasn't closed properly. What's even more frustrating is that this cycle doesn't need the other person to continue. You can be physically distant, blocked, separated, or even in a new relationship, and still be mentally entangled, because what you're holding on to is not always the person. It's the why ifs and the I wish I knews. You're haunted by possibilities, by moments that needed more clarity, by conversations that never happened, and by apologies that were never spoken. Unfinished emotional business creates what psychologists refer to as cognitive dissonance. Your mind is trying to reconcile two conflicting realities, what you experienced versus what you feel you deserved. The deeper the emotional investment, the stronger the dissonance, and the more intense that mental loop becomes. You might revisit conversations, searching for hidden meanings. You might read old messages, trying to spot what you missed. You might even fantasize about running into them again, not just out of longing, but because deep down you're hoping for a resolution that gives your heart peace. The sad truth is that many of us don't get the closure we crave. People leave without explaining. People hurt us without acknowledging it. People disappear before we even understand what we meant to them. And when that happens, your mind becomes a courtroom, constantly replaying evidence, trying to reach a verdict. But that verdict rarely comes, not because it doesn't exist, but because it has to come from you. At some point, we have to accept that not every emotional chapter gets a final sentence from someone else. Sometimes, the only way to stop the repetition is to give yourself the closure they never gave you. That means acknowledging the pain, admitting what hurt, accepting what you'll never understand, and choosing to end the story not because it ended well, but because you're ready to stop reliving it. It also requires you to take back your power. Because when your peace depends on someone else's explanation, you're giving them control over your healing. But when you choose to let go, not out of denial, but out of compassion for your own well-being, that's when the loop starts to lose power. That's when the voice that kept replaying the past gets quieter. That's when you finally get to breathe again. Unfinished emotional business feeds mental repetition, yes. But healing begins when you stop waiting for someone to come back and finish the story, and instead pick up the pen yourself and write the final page. It won't be easy. You'll still think of them sometimes. You'll still feel the sting of what could have been. But you'll no longer be a prisoner of the past. You'll be the author of your own peace, and there is no closure more powerful than that. Some people enter your life and leave such a deep mark on your soul that even when they're gone, they never really leave. You find yourself thinking about them at random moments, in the middle of a song, a sunset, or even while doing something completely unrelated. Their memory lingers like a faint whisper in the back of your mind, and you don't fully understand why. It's not always about love in the romantic sense. It's not always about longing or unfinished business. Sometimes it's something deeper, something almost spiritual. That's what we call a soul connection. And those connections leave echoes in the mind long after the person is no longer present in your life. A soul connection is different from any other kind of bond. It's not based on logic, convenience, or time. You can meet someone for a brief moment and feel more seen by them than people you've known for years. Or you can spend years with someone who was meant to awaken something in you, even if they weren't meant to stay. When you cross paths with someone who mirrors parts of your soul, your fears, your dreams, your potential, that encounter doesn't just fade with time. It embeds itself into your consciousness. It becomes a part of your emotional memory. These connections go beyond chemistry or shared experiences. They awaken parts of you that were dormant. They challenge you to see yourself differently. They may enter your life during times of chaos or transformation, offering comfort, clarity, or even painful truth. They can act as catalysts for growth, pulling you toward a better version of yourself, often by shaking you out of your comfort zone. And because of this profound impact, your mind keeps returning to them, not necessarily because you want them back, but because they meant something. They changed you. The mind has a way of holding onto moments that feel larger than life, and soul connections often create those moments. Conversations that feel electric, silences that feel safe, or even conflicts that feel intensely personal. These moments become emotionally charged memories, and your brain stores them in a special place. When your soul recognizes something familiar, meaningful, or aligned, your subconscious takes note. That's why even when you try to move on, these people still occupy mental space. It's not obsession, it's resonance. Sometimes we misinterpret this constant remembrance as a sign that we're not over someone, or that we're meant to reunite. But not every soul connection is meant to last forever. Some are meant to guide, teach, or prepare you for something greater. They serve a purpose, not a permanence. Yet even knowing this, the impact remains. Because the echo isn't just about them. It's about you. It's about who you became because of that connection. It's about the parts of yourself they awakened that you now carry forward. You may find that their voice still plays in your head when you're faced with a tough decision. Their perspective may have shaped your values or shifted your worldview. You might still remember the way they made you feel in moments of vulnerability, and that memory becomes your standard for emotional intimacy. The echo isn't necessarily painful. It can even be a source of strength, but it's persistent because the connection went beyond surface level interaction. It went soul deep. In spiritual terms, some believe these people are part of our soul group. Beings we're destined to meet across lifetimes to help us evolve. Whether you subscribe to that belief or not, there's no denying that some connections feel fated, almost too meaningful to be random, and when they end, there's often no clean break. The mind still wanders back, the heart still wanders, not always in sadness, but in reverence, because you know something sacred passed between you, even if the world never understood it. Letting go of a soul connection isn't about forgetting. It's about honoring what was, integrating what it gave you, and continuing your path. The echo may always remain faint in the background of your life, but it doesn't have to haunt you. It can guide you. It can remind you of the depth you're capable of, the growth you've achieved, and the beauty of a bond that was written into your story for a reason. The mind remembers the soul's language, and when the soul has spoken, it's nearly impossible to unhear it. When someone lingers in your thoughts long after they've left your life, it might not be because of who they are, but because of what they represent. Sometimes the people we can't stop thinking about are mirrors. They reflect back to us parts of ourselves we haven't fully faced, understood, or healed. These people may enter our lives with intensity, and when they leave, they don't just take themselves. They take a version of us that felt seen, wanted, or alive. But the truth is, it's not always them we're missing. It's the unresolved part of ourselves that they triggered, exposed, or awakened. We all carry emotional wounds, some from childhood, others from heartbreaks, betrayals, or disappointments we never fully processed. And when someone enters our life and connects with us on a deep level, they don't just connect with our present self. They connect with our wounds, our patterns, our fears, and our longings. If there's a part of you that never felt good enough and they made you feel wanted, that connection becomes powerful. If you've never felt truly understood and they saw you in a way others didn't, that impression becomes unforgettable. But if they left, without explanation, with rejection, or through betrayal. It's not just the loss of the person that hurts. It's the reopening of the wound they unknowingly touched. These people like emotional highlighters. They bring certain parts of us to the surface. In their presence, we may have felt whole or alive. When they're gone, that absence feels magnified. But the mind's obsession with them is often a misdirection. It tells us to focus on the person, the relationship, the memories. In truth, the real focus should be inward. They are just a symbol of something inside us that's still raw, still unresolved, still yearning for peace. You may find yourself repeatedly asking, why can't I let them go? Why are they still on my mind? Why do I still feel this way even though I know they weren't right for me? The answer is rarely about them. The answer is because they reflect a version of you that still needs your attention. Maybe you were seeking validation from someone who never gave it to you because deep down you've struggled to validate yourself. Maybe you chased love from someone emotionally unavailable because a part of you has always equated love with chasing. Maybe they made you feel safe, and now you realize how unsafe you've felt in your own emotional world. It's important to understand that healing isn't just about forgetting people who hurt you or letting go of those who left. Healing is about becoming aware of why they mattered so much in the first place. What unmet need did they appear to fulfill? What fear did they soothe temporarily? What story about yourself did they reinforce, positive or negative? Until those answers become clear, your mind will keep returning to them, not because of who they are, but because of what part of you is still unresolved. This reflection can be painful. It requires brutal honesty. It means admitting that we were vulnerable, that we gave power to someone else to make us feel whole, and that we tied our emotional stability to their presence or approval. But it's also a gift, because through this awareness, we are given the opportunity to reclaim those parts of ourselves. To say, I am worthy, even if they didn't choose me. I am enough, even if they left. I am lovable, even if they never said it. Their silence doesn't define my voice. Their absence doesn't erase my presence. Over time, as you start to tend to those inner wounds, not with shame, but with compassion, you'll notice the intensity of those thoughts begin to fade. They may still cross your mind, but it won't sting the way it used to. You'll see them for what they were. A mirror, not your missing piece. A reflection, not your rescue. And instead of being haunted by their memory, you'll feel gratitude for what they revealed. Because healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about understanding it so deeply that it no longer controls you. So if someone won't leave your mind, ask yourself, what part of me do they represent? What lesson is my soul still trying to learn? The moment you turn the focus inward, the healing begins. And when that healing is complete, you'll stop seeking answers in their silence. You'll find them in your own voice.